and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. I welcome you again in this session 2 of Indian economy and social development that we are running for Prelims 2024. You will have total 5 sessions of economy. One we did yesterday and second we are starting today. MCQ, the questions that we will be discussing will be a kind of guiding path to various principles, various concepts, various themes, so that one MCQ can be used to decipher different aspects of that particular topic. Let us start with the first question. In the context of economy, which one of the following statements best describe, look at the term, best describes the term paradox of value. Paradox of value. First, try to understand what is meant by paradox of value. What are the other paradoxes, other concepts of economy? This paradox of value is also known as diamond water paradox. This paradox says diamond is not important for our life. For the survival of our life, diamond is not important. Without diamond also, we can survive. On the other hand, water is essential, without which we cannot survive. But in actuality, diamond is costly and water is cheap. A commodity which is essential for our life is found free of cost, and a commodity which is not required for our survival is so costly. This is called paradox of value. Now, in this light, let us examine every option. First, it is a situation where there is a decline in national savings in times of economic downturns. It has no relation with the paradox of value. Second is, it is a phenomenon where the value of a good is solely determined by its usefulness or importance. That means this utilitarian definition is not related to paradox of value. Third option, it is a situation where the total employment in the economy will decline if more people join the labor force in the economy. No, it has no relation with this paradox of value. So 3 options eliminated. Now we are left with, it is a phenomenon where goods that are not essential to life command a higher price than goods that are essential to life. A commodity which is not essential is sold at higher price, and a commodity which is more essential is sold free of cost or at a cheaper price. So option D would be correct. Now the point is how it happens and why it happens. This paradox of value happens because you might have heard of a very beautiful concept, and that is known as marginal productivity. Marginal means with every extra unit. If productivity is added, their value would be high. And related to this is the concept of marginal utility. With every unit of consumption, with every extra unit of consumption, if the utility that we are deriving, if that is going up, then that commodity will be sold at a higher price, higher value. And if marginal utility goes down, the commodity price would be cheap or low. Look at the example of water. With every extra glass of water, the utility that we are deriving is going down. That is why water is cheap. It is cheap because marginal utility is less. Marginal utility is going down. But in case of diamond, with every extra unit of diamond, utility is not going down. That means we never say that now we do not want to consume another unit of diamond. That is why diamond is costly. So what I need to tell you, when you decide about the price of anything, there are two aspects. First, price of factor, and second is price of product. We can go on and on. We can continue discussing it. But I am just giving you a hint. When it is about a product, product is made up of different factors, different raw materials. A product requires different types of inputs. Price of the input is decided by marginal productivity, and price of the product is decided by marginal utility. So, with regards to the first question, my dear friends, answer is the fourth option, D for Delhi. Second question. The escape clause under the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003 is invoked in which of the following cases? First of all, what is escape clause? As the question itself says, this FRBM, this act was passed by Parliament in 2003. The purpose of this act was to discipline government's finances, to discipline government's budget. All this started because of the financial crisis, economic crisis that India witnessed in 1991. And hence, to avoid the repetition of this crisis, certain checks were imposed, certain austerity measures were suggested to the government, and accordingly FRBM was passed. Now, in 2018, NK Singh committee, this committee was set up to look into the working of FRBM. How effective was FRBM, and if any improvement needed, if any suggestion needed. NK Singh committee suggested escape clause. Means FRBM puts certain ceiling. This much should be revenue deficit, this much should be fiscal deficit, this much should be primary deficit, etc., etc. Government should not breach its deficit target, but government can break that. Actually, government can get some exemption under escape clause. What are those conditions when government can invoke escape clause? Statement 1. Decline in real output growth of at least 3 percentage points Absolutely correct statement. Second, structural reforms in the economy. Correct statement. Third, acts of war. Correct statement. And last, collapse of agriculture severely affecting farm output and incomes. Correct. Fourth statement, correct. Fifth, inflation more than 10% for 2 consecutive quarters. There is no such provision. That means the fifth point is incorrect, and that is why if you look at this question, under these 4 circumstances, government can avail of escape clause, government may come out of the restrictions, obligations imposed by FRBM. That is why answer would be C, 1, 2, 3 and 4, because fifth is incorrect. Escape clause has nothing to do with inflation. Now next question. Consider the following instruments. First, bankers' acceptances. Second, certificates of deposits. Third, treasury bills. Fourth, commercial paper. Now the question is, how many of the above are classified as money market instruments? If you know the meaning of money market and the other market that we have in financial sector, instantly you can answer this question. Money market means such financial assets where maturity period is less than 1 year. What does that mean? If I invested in a mutual fund, if I invested in any financial instrument, that is financial assets, if I invested in some fixed deposits, if I invested in any document, and if maturity period is less than 1 year, then that will be subject to money market. And second is, if maturity period is more than 1 year, then it is subject to capital market. It simply means money market and capital market, these are not the two marketplaces. These are not the two physical places. These are actually decided on the basis of maturity period of any financial instrument. If maturity period is less than 1 year, they are the instruments of money market. If maturity period is more than 1 year, they are instruments of capital market. Now if I look at all these 4, all 4 are having maturity period of less than 1 year. That means answer would be all 4. Means all 4, they fall under money market instruments. Now let us move on to another question. Which of the following statement is correct with reference to marginal cost of fund-based lending rate, MCLR? Now whenever we talk about MCLR, it takes us to a whole range of quantitative instruments adopted by the central bank, that is RBI in case of India, to control supply of money. Like if you look at Banking Regulation Act, Banking Regulation Act 1949, it talks about bank rate. Then over a period of time, different scheduled commercial banks, they devised their own mechanism that is known as prime lending rate. Along with PLR, automatically comes subprime lending rate. But after this financial crisis of 2008-9, in 2010, base rate came. But base rate did not work. Then in 2016, MCLR came. And when even MCLR proved to be ineffective, I'll give you a hint how it became ineffective. But when MCLR also proved to be ineffective, then in 2019, external benchmarking came. So today, Indian banks are following external benchmarking method. Now the question pertains to MCLR. The purpose of this reform, why MCLR was introduced in 2016. Purpose was easy and smooth transmission of monetary policy. Like for example, when RBI lowers interest rates, it is expected that banks will also follow it, RBI. If RBI is lowering the rate, banks are also expected to bring down their lending rate, so that the purpose of RBI, where RBI is lowering rates to increase liquidity in the system, and if banks are not passing on this benefit to the consumer, how credit growth will happen? But that was not happening. Banks were actually taking the advantage of rate cuts by RBI, but banks were not forwarding it to the customers. And that is why marginal cost of fund-based lending rate was introduced. It simply means, if you look at this question, it simply means banks will charge lending rate based on the actual cost of fund and not on the basis of average cost of fund. Marginal means additional. For example, if I look at the options, it is a benchmark interest rate set by the RBI of India. RBI for commercial banks. No, it is not benchmark. It is determined based on the bank's average. The moment word average came, second option is incorrect. Now third, it allows banks to pass on changes in the cost of funds to borrowers. That was the purpose of MCLR. So option C is correct. And fourth, it is applicable only on the home loans and not to other types of loans. Absolutely incorrect. The purpose of MCLR was RBI's monetary transmission should happen till bottom in a very transparent manner. And that is why MCLR was introduced in 2016. Now, next question. Consider the following statements with reference to zero coupon, zero principal instrument. Now there is a trick. Usually in capital market, financial market, you hear the term zero coupon bonds. It is not zero coupon bond. It says zero coupon, zero principal instrument. What does that mean? First statement. It is a high yield security that pays periodic interest and principal at maturity. No. Coupon is 0, principal is also 0. So nothing is paid. It is a kind of donation. You might have heard of social stock exchanges. When say NGOs, NPOs, or those organizations which are involved in charity purposes, how will they tap resources? And then to facilitate them, such philanthropic charity works, the work for the welfare of society, the works for the implementation of directive principles of state policy, social stock exchange came into existence. So it is 0 principal, nothing is returned. Forget about interest. That means first statement is incorrect. Statement number 2, it can be issued by the non-profit organizations registered with the social stock exchange. Absolutely correct. So when such NGOs, such NPOs, they receive any money, they just get receipt. The donor just gets receipt. And there is no maturity period that they will receive their money back, because actually it is in the form of donation, charity. So statement 2 is correct. Answer is B. First statement is incorrect. Now, next question. Which of the following transactions are included under transfer payments? First of all, understand transfer payments. These are also known as unilateral capital transfers. Now concept would be more clear. Unilateral transfer is happening, but there is no reciprocity. Transfer is happening, but it is without expectation. For example, pocket money that you receive from parents, scholarships, donations. Here you are making a payment without expecting anything in return. That is called transfer payment. Now, social security benefits. Yes, when government provides social security benefit, it is actually not expecting anything. It is a kind of welfare measure by the government of India. It is not an economic activity that government will collect taxes thereafter. Second, unemployment benefits. Yes, here also, till the time you are unemployed, government will give you certain types of benefits, say unemployment stipend or anything. Here also it is a kind of welfare measure where government is not expecting anything. Third, veterans benefits means veterans, elderly people, old age homes governments run. Here also social security measure. So these three are done keeping in mind that nothing will come, because these are not economic activities as such. Now the fourth one, public infrastructure investment. Investments are not capital transfers, because when you invest, you earn dividend as well. So investments are not capital transfers. These are economic activities and government gets in return. So thereby, first three answer would be B for Bombay, option number 1, 2 and 3. These three items are correct. Fourth item is not correct. Next question. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The capital output ratio in the underdeveloped countries is generally lower as compared to developed economies. First of all, if you know this capital output ratio, instantly you will find that first statement is incorrect. This is actually incremental capital output ratio. Formula is ICOR is equal to capital upon productivity. That means ICOR and productivity both are inversely proportionate. If ICOR is high, that means productivity would be less. That means more wastage. But if ICOR is low, that means efficient utilization of resources, productivity is high. Now, in the light of this definition of ICOR, look at the statement 1. The capital output ratio in the underdeveloped countries is generally lower. How come it can be lower? It is underdeveloped country. It is underdeveloped country. That means technological progress would be less. People would be unskilled or semi-skilled. So if labor is unskilled, that is why these are underdeveloped countries. Underdeveloped means their resources are not fully utilized. Underdeveloped means they are technologically less advanced. So in underdeveloped countries, it will always be higher. High ICOR is equal to low productivity. So first statement is incorrect. Now statement 2. The underdeveloped economies lack technological advancements to reduce the total cost of production. This is absolutely fine. Because in underdeveloped countries, technology is not very advanced. That is also a very important factor why ICOR in underdeveloped countries are very high. That means statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is correct. Statement 1 is incorrect simply because in underdeveloped countries, ICOR will always be high, productivity will always be less because there is wastage of resources. Now, so answer would be D for Delhi. Next question. Which one of the following best describes the term secured overnight financing rate, SOFR? This concept of SOFR actually came in 2023. And if we know why it was introduced, we can easily answer this question. You might have heard of a term called call money. Call money means borrowing by banks for one day. Banks borrow money in case of urgency, in case of meeting some regulatory compliances. They borrow money for one day. That money is called call money. And call money was decided internationally under LIBOR and LIBID, and this is internationally. And MIBOR and MIBID, that is in India. 2022 onwards, it was observed that LIBOR and LIBID, these rates were getting compromised. There were some banks which are also involved, some brokers were involved. So a kind of scam was going on. And we all know that after 2008 economic crisis, Lehman Brothers crisis, also known as subprime crisis, regulators of almost every big nation, they were very alert, cautious. And that is why in 2023, LIBOR and LIBID was done away with, and in its place, SOFR was introduced. Under it, what happens? LIBOR was without any collateral, but in SOFR, US Treasury bills as collateral. That is why term secured has been used. LIBOR was without any collateral, that is why there was chance of scam, but SOFR is based on collateral. Now look at the option. It is a benchmark interest rate used for raising money without collateral. Look at this, without collateral. That means option A is incorrect. Second option, it is the rate at which the US Federal Reserve lends to commercial banks. No, it is a rate between two banks. Central bank has nothing to do with it. Then it is a reference rate used for valuing derivatives in the European market. No. Then we are left with the fourth option. It is a benchmark interest rate for dollar denominated derivatives and loans. Option D is correct. And we saw how LIBOR and LIBID were abolished, and in that place SOFR was introduced. Now let us move on to another question. Consider the following assets. First, government securities, cash, corporate bonds, loans and advances, equity shares. These 5 types of assets are given. How many of the above are included under the statutory liquidity ratio? Very simple question. If you look at these 5 assets, only first and second, these two are included under SLR. Along with these two, third is gold with the bank. So these 3 are the elements of SLR. These 3 constitute SLR. But there is a very minor catch. If suppose in the examination you have this statement, gold with RBI, then don't get confused. Gold with RBI is part of foreign exchange reserves. If it is with RBI, then it is not a part of SLR, it becomes part of foreign exchange reserves. And if it is gold with the bank, then it is part of SLR. So that way, third option, fourth option and fifth option, these are incorrect. Correct answer is only 1 and 2. A is correct answer. Now let us move to another question. Consider the following financial institutions. First, Nidhi companies, chit fund companies, Mudra Bank, National Housing Bank. Question is, how many of the above are categorized as non-banking financial companies in India? This is a very simple question, all 4. Why this question was given? Usually NHB or your Mudra Bank, these two might appear to you as a kind of confusing point, but it is not so. All 4 are part of NBFC. So answer would be D for Delhi. Now if you want to go a bit further, why at all NBFCs were created? Which committee was instrumental in the formation of NBFC? How many types of NBFCs you have? And in 2021, RBI proposed a 4-layer NBFC structure. It was proposed in 2021. In 2024, this NBFC was in news because Tata Sons, either they had to go public. Tata Sons, I'm talking about the trust. Tata Trust had to list with the stock exchange and come out with their shares, or it has to actually pay all the debt it has taken, because it has come under the 4th layer of NBFC. So those developments in 2024, in the month of February, March and April, it was very much in news. So what additional information that you need to do is, what is the issue with Tata Sons as top layer NBFC? Then it will be called that you prepared the question in totality. Now, next question. With reference to transition bonds, consider the following statements. There are multiple types of bonds. There is one out of those multiple types that is called specific bonds. These are those bonds whose proceeds are always spent on specific purposes. Transition bond, the proceeds or the revenue collected from these bonds are spent on environmental related projects or environmental friendly projects. Now look at the statement. They are financial instruments to support sustainable and low carbon economy transition. Absolutely correct. That is the main purpose of transition bond. Second, they can be issued by firms that are not qualified to issue green bonds to reduce their greenhouse gas emission. Correct. Because if you wish to issue green bonds, you have to fulfill multiple regulatory compliances. And if those compliances are not filled, you are not qualified to issue green bonds. Then, as a precursor, as you can say, savings clause, concept of transition bonds were introduced. Hence, here in this question, answer is C. Both statements are correct. Statement 1 and statement 2. Now look at the next question. With reference to long-term repo operations, consider the following statements. First of all, long-term, LTRO. The moment any concept comes to your mind, don't jump to the question. First, try to understand various concepts associated with it. Long-term repo operation, from where it came? It came from 2014 targeted long-term repo operation, which was introduced in European Union. So the concept of LTRO is inspired by the European model of targeted long-term repo operation. In India, it was introduced in 2020, October, in the month of October. Having said this, look at the statement. It is a liquidity facility whereby central banks lend money to banks for a period of 1 to 3 years. Absolutely correct. But then what is the difference between LTRO and TLTRO? In European Union, it is for 4 years. In India, it is 1 to 3 years. Second statement, it enables banks to reduce their marginal cost of fund lending rate without reduction in policy rates. This statement is also correct. Actually, repo operations are short-term operations. Overnight, 7 days, maximum 1 month, 14 days. RBI wanted to infuse more liquidity in the system, more sustained liquidity in the system. And that is why it took a clue from TLTRO of European Union and came out with the concept of LTRO. So in this question, option is, answer is C. First and second, both statements are correct. Now next question. Which of the following contributes to a higher tax to GDP ratio in an economy? First, exemption of agriculture income from taxation. If you exempt agriculture sector, tax to GDP will go down, so incorrect. You have to bring in more and more sectors because question is related to tax to GDP ratio. A sector which contributes more than say 20-24% in our GDP, if that sector is out of tax net, obviously it will bring down tax to GDP ratio. Second, promoting large informal sector, incorrect. Because if you are promoting informal sector, you are actually promoting non-compliance of taxes. Why? Because how has this informal sector been defined? A sector which employs less than 10 people if using electricity, less than 20 people if not using electricity. These are informal sectors, don't pay taxes. If you look at India yearbook, it defines informal sector as a sector where modern form of trade union is lacking. So thereby these sectors are usually tax exempt. These are smaller sectors. So if we promote informal sector, we are actually bringing down tax to GDP ratio. Third, broadening the tax base, absolutely correct. Fourth, promoting property taxes and capital taxes, correct. Fifth, implementing progressive taxes, excellent. But as an assignment, when we say progressive, do prepare regressive as well. And along with regressive, do prepare proportional taxation as well. That will actually give you a sense of completeness. So in this question, answer would be 3, 4 and 5. Because first and second, these 2 points are incorrect. Now moving to next question. Which one of the following situations best describes the twin deficit phenomenon? Twin deficit. When there is a deficit in your finances, public finance, fiscal deficit, and when there is deficit in your current account as well. So obviously in this question you have answer is A. Increased imports and negative trade balance, incorrect. Tight monetary policies and a reduced government expenditure, no way, incorrect. Simultaneous decline in aggregate demand and employment levels. Twin deficit means we have fiscal deficit as well as current account deficit. Now when we talk about twin deficit, you need to understand 3 more points. First, twin balance sheet problem known as TBS. Then you have 4 balance sheet problem known as 4BS. TBS was introduced in 2008. 4BS was introduced in 2015, and along with that there is another term known as double financial repression. These three concepts, because question might not be asked on twin deficit, but twin word TBS, 4BS and double financial repression, that you need to prepare as an assignment. Now next question. Consider the following statements with reference to the Indian economy. Statement 1. Monetized deficit may lead to an increase in total money supply in the system and causes inflation. Absolutely correct. What is monetized deficit? Printing of new currency to compensate government's fiscal deficit, or this way it is called direct monetization, or second can be selling of government securities to the banks. So the first statement is absolutely correct, because if there is monetized deficit, that means government expenditure is crossing its limit, and when government starts spending more and more, it has inflationary impact. Statement 2. Under monetized deficit, the central bank sells government bonds to meet government borrowing needs. It sells securities, and that too when it is indirect monetization. When there is direct monetization, only printing happens. So here in this question, answer would be C. Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Printing of new currency, that is called direct monetization. Now next question. Consider the following statements. Traditional budgeting requires all expenses to be justified for each period. This is not traditional budgeting. This is called zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting, which was introduced by Peter Payer, talks about taking the base as zero, and when government justifies, government departments, government ministries, they justify each and every line item, each and every item of expenditure, then only they are given money. So the first statement is actually a feature of zero-based budgeting and not of traditional budgeting. Second statement, zero-based budgeting uses historical data and projections to allocate money. No, this is feature of traditional budgeting. So first and second statement, these two are jumbled up. The features of first are actually feature of zero based, and features of second are the features of traditional. So first and second, these two statements are incorrect. And now third statement, in India, the outcome budget is presented along with the union budget, indicating outcomes of the government scheme. So this statement is correct. So in this given question, answer is C, only 3. Now let us move on to another question. Consider the following statements. Fiscal drag refers to an economic situation where income growth or inflation forces taxpayers into higher tax bracket. Absolutely correct. Because what happens in fiscal drag? There is growth in income and there is price rise as well. Then again income grows further, price rises further. But what happens as our income grow, we are put under higher tax slabs, higher tax brackets. So first statement is correct. Second, fiscal cliff is associated with cuts in government spending and increase in taxes. Absolutely correct. Fiscal cliff means this is a kind of very crisis time, and it was propounded by economist Phillips, and it was popularized by Chairman American Federal Reserve Ben Bernanke. He says, when government is about to collapse, and if government does not stop its spending, you are going to face a kind of financial crisis. That is why tax rates must be increased and government spending must be cut, must be decreased. This is cliff. That is why both statements are correct. Answer is C. Statement 1 and statement 2. Both are correct. Now, next question. Consider the following monetary policy instruments: cash reserve ratio, open market operations, bank rate, and SLR, statutory liquidity ratio. How many of the above are components of varying reserve requirement? There are only two reserve requirements. One is CRR and another is SLR. These two, open market operation and bank rate, these two are instruments to regulate money supply. They are instruments of monetary policy, quantitative instruments, but actually they are not reserve requirements. So CRR and SLR, only these two are reserve requirement. Answer would be D. D for Delhi, only 1 and 4. Next. Which of the following are components of revenue receipts under public finances in India? Now, very easy question, but what is revenue receipt? Is there any other receipt as well? There are two receipts, revenue receipts versus capital receipts. Revenue receipts are occurring in nature. And capital receipts non-occurring in nature. Revenue receipts, multiple exits, multiple entry. Capital receipts, one time exit, one time entry. Now in the light of this definition, look at the options. Recovery of loans and advances, dividend income from public sector units, issuance of securities to public sector banks, revenue from state duty, and public investments in national savings certificate. There are multiple facts in this question, revenue receipt and capital receipt. What you need to do is actually mug up. Otherwise, dividend income, if it says reinvestment of dividend income, things would change. So here in this question, if I look at revenue receipt and in the government budgeting, only option number 2, dividend income from public sector units, and 4, revenue from state duty. Recovery of loans and advances is one time, non-occurring. Issuance of securities to public sector banks, again one time, non-occurring in nature, so capital receipt. Public sector investments in national savings fund, one time. So these three, they are part of capital receipt and not the revenue receipt. So answer would be B for Bombay, 2 and 4. Next question. With reference to taxation, consider the following statements. While ad valorem tax is based on value, specific taxes are fixed tax imposed on a particular unit. Absolutely correct, because a specific tax means when tax is levied on the basis of specific quality or a specific feature, say smell, weight, length, width, taste. When taxation is based on those specific features like cars, cigarettes, liquors, they are taxed on or as per specific taxation. So they are fixed tax imposed on a particular unit. Ad valorem tax means it is based on value, means as percentage of total price like GST, ad valorem taxation, even income tax, ad valorem taxation. GST is levied as percentage of the MRP or the price of the product. That is ad valorem. Specific means based on specific features. So first statement is correct. Both ad valorem and specific tax are progressive taxes. Incorrect, because GST is also ad valorem, but GST is indirect tax, and indirect tax by nature is regressive, because progressive taxation means with increase in our income, tax liability goes down. Income increases, tax liability also increases. That is progressive. Like income tax, if you earn less, you have to pay less tax. With increase in your income, tax liability also increases. That is why direct taxes are called progressive taxation. But when we look at indirect taxes, they are levied at the point of consumption. So there is nothing called income level of the consumer. You are rich or you are poor, both have to pay same GST rate. You are buying 1 liter of petrol, same GST. You are rich or you are poor. So if you say that both are progressive taxation, that is incorrect, because indirect taxes are by nature regressive. Regressive means with increase in your income, tax liability is not increasing. That is regressive. So here second statement is incorrect. Third, unlike specific taxes, ad valorem taxes have a direct impact on consumption behavior. Wrong. It is not unlike. Specific taxes also decide your consumption behavior. If a particular product attracts higher tax, we tend to discourage consumption of those commodity. So thereby, not only ad valorem, specific taxation also decides, determines and guides our consumption behavior. So here in this question, only first statement is correct. Answer is A, only one. Next question. Which one of the following statement is correct with reference to the variable portfolio ceiling? First is, it is a measure of portfolio diversification for investments in different asset class such as stocks, bonds, real estate. Incorrect. It is not talking about portfolio investment. It is not talking about foreign portfolio investment. It is talking about variable portfolio ceiling. Ceiling means upper cap. Variable means change, subject to change. So first option is incorrect. Second, it is a financing model used in public-private partnership projects to reduce risk exposure. Incorrect. Third, it is a measure used by central bank to limit credit flow to specific industries. Absolutely correct. That is why it is called variable. Like if government wants to put more money in housing sector, if government wants that people should buy or people should go for more housing loan, government may bring down margin money requirement. Government may bring down housing loan rate. If government wants to promote industrial installations, government may change or may alter the margin money requirement. That is why, friends, option C is correct. D, it is the limit imposed on investments made by foreign institutional investors. Absolutely incorrect. So look at the question. It is not asking about foreign portfolio investment. So here answer is C, variable portfolio ceiling. When government uses or government intends to direct the credit flow to specific industries. Now another question. For a sustained high growth, which of the following statements will be true? First, raising the investment by keeping the incremental capital output ratio minimum. Second, raising the investment and incremental capital output ratio both. Third, increasing capital output ratio. Wherever you find increasing capital output ratio, that means that is disaster. We saw in previous questions that high capital output ratio is equal to more wastage. We discussed in previous questions that incremental capital output ratio and productivity both are inversely proportionate. So if ICOR is high, that means you are wasting more resources. If ICOR is high, that means productivity is less. So second and third statement prima facie is wrong because it is talking about increasing capital output ratio. That is absolutely a blunder. Then if second and third statements are incorrect, D is automatically incorrect. Then our first A option is correct. Raising the investment should be increased but capital output ratio should be kept minimum, otherwise wastage of resources. So in this question, answer is A. Another question. Consider the following statements regarding sovereign wealth fund. First, SWFs are state-owned investment funds. The question is, what is SWF? In very brief, let me tell you. There are countries in the world whose central banks they have acquired, or they have received, or they have accumulated huge amount of foreign exchange reserves. And those foreign exchange reserves are over and above, are in excess of what they need to meet their import requirement or to meet their domestic liability. So here, few central banks, they thought that if we have excess foreign exchange, let us use it, and they created sovereign wealth fund. So SWFs are state-owned investment funds, absolutely correct. Norway, sovereign wealth fund of Singapore, these are state-owned fund. Dubai, Hong Kong, sovereign wealth fund of China. Next, SWFs are established through fiscal and trade surpluses. Very good. Because if I don't have fiscal surplus, if I don't have trade surplus, that means I don't have enough foreign exchange reserve. And if I don't have enough foreign exchange reserve, how would I create a separate fund? So second statement is correct. Third, they are used to stabilize budget and economy of the country from excess volatility in revenues. Excellent. They act as a cushion. And last, SWFs typically invests in government-owned projects. No, they are 100% profit driven. So here in this question, statement number 1, 2 and 3, these three statements are correct. So answer would be D for Delhi. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding exchange traded funds. First, ETFs are traded like stocks and can be bought and sold throughout the day. Absolutely correct. ETFs can be used as a vehicle for disinvestment. Absolutely correct. ETFs offer the benefit of diversification of risk. Absolutely correct. All three statements are correct. Now what is ETF? What is exchange traded fund? Now suppose, imagine government wants to disinvest 10 public sector undertaking. 10. And government wants to carry out this investment, this disinvestment, by way of listing, by way of you can say getting listed at a stock exchange, right? Now if government goes to the stock exchange separately, government has to go to the stock exchange 10 times, because there are 10 PSUs. There would be cost, there would be time involved, there would be lots of other things involved. So what government does is, government merges all 10 PSUs in terms of number of shares and list that fund as a separate entity, that is ETF. The benefit of ETF is, government need not go to the stock exchange 10 times. Government need not fulfill all the requirements 10 times. Government need not pay commissions to the brokers and other fees 10 times. So all 10 PSUs, they were considered as one entity, and then they were listed at the stock exchange, and thereby ETFs came into existence. So in this question, all three statements are correct. So answer would be D for Delhi. Last question for the day. Consider the following statements. Inflation benefits creditors. It's very simple question, multiple times asked. Inflation benefits debtors. Those who take money, they will remain in benefit because value of money is going down. Those who are giving money, they will be at loss because they are receiving less money. So thereby here in this question, very simple, their option B, only 2, this statement is correct. So friends, we completed our discussion on day 2. Let us meet tomorrow for day 3. Thank you.